You probably want to be prepared for whatever could come your way, what could happen to your family. And some of the simplest situations can really cause a lot of confusion if you aren't prepared. And my next guest has decided she wants to prepare for anything that can happen, whether it's an economic disaster or an earthquake or anything in between. She just wants to be prepared. She's an average citizen, and she's here to tell you how you can be prepared as an average citizen. Richel, welcome to Smart Life. Happy to have you.
Thank you.
Now, what made you decide, I'm going to get involved in this whole preparedness, because there are a million ways you could spend your time, but you decided this is going to be my focus. Why?
Okay, so about 3 years ago, and probably starting way back to the wildfires, I got a little bit concerned about what was happening. And just from personal experience of having to be evacuated twice, seeing people lose their homes, having nothing, that was really scary. And so that really made me think, okay, I need to do something. I need to be prepared in case something like that happens, which has happened in San Diego County. We're not just talking about the wildfires, the blackout in 2011. That was pretty horrible. People stranded about 2 hours on the freeway, no gas, nearest gas station 30 minutes away. And
I mean, even just in certain parts of the country, a big snowstorm can cause days and days without the basic supplies, but certainly something more disastrous like a 9/11 or some sort of outside attack could leave people weeks and months. Yeah. So you decided that this needed to be almost a citizens movement. I mean, you're not going to depend on your prepper neighbor to take care of you. You're going to make sure you have what you need, and you decided to kind of take it to the community, and you established a meetup. Tell us about this.
So our meetup group is called Survival Preparedness. It's the 6th largest survival preparedness group in the nation, and it's basically people coming together. Our whole model is low to no cost, and teaching each other skills. Some people, know how to can, and things that we've lost. We haven't really, this generation, we don't really, know much about, canning our own food, growing our own vegetables, doing things on our own, fixing things around the house, stuff like that. We more are relied upon other people. And so a big part of, being prepared in general is to be self-sustaining, growing your own food, knowing how to process it, doing simple skills.
So that if it were a long, drawn-out disaster of some sort, hopefully there'd be somebody who was a member of your meetup on your block, right?
Yes.
Because that's going to be the person that's going to help sustain everybody. Somebody's got to know. And so it's almost like I want to say it's almost like a civic involvement, a sort of social responsibility.
Community. Yeah, it's a community. So any disaster that happens, you can't do it alone. You want to have as many people in your community that you can learn from, that can help you. We want to have farmers, we want to have doctors, medical emergencies, daily things that happen every day. People who have radio is another really big thing. Right. Communication. So we basically
having a network.
Yeah, a network and
now, let's just take that network down to the base level, and let's say, Richel, that there is a disaster. How are you going to reach that person? Because you're not going to have access to probably the computer and the meetup group.
You're right.
So you've prepared for that. So how are you going to find that doctor, that nurse, that ham radio operator?
That's a very good question. And one of the things that I really wanted to accomplish was our own ham network check-in. So most cell towers should have at least 12 hours of backup supply. After that, your cell phone's not going to work. During the blackout, people couldn't get through because phone lines were jammed. Ham radio is a way to go. It's a way for you to contact people, and it's on a different frequency, so you don't get jammed and all that. You get live updates, stuff like that. That's why we encourage people to go out there and get their ham radio license and practice using it. And anywhere they go, all across the country, if they can access a repeater, they can access the emergency lines. They will get real-time feed on what is happening.
So for as much as we all love technology, you're saying we should be using technology for the purpose of figuring out what we do if that technology is gone tomorrow. And people can't even think like that. What does happen if our technology just shuts down in this country for a couple of days?
Technology meaning that like an EMP or technology?
Yeah, like an EMP.
That's difficult. Because if that happens...
But I mean, we survived for all these years without technology, so people might think, well, it's not that big of a deal if we have an EMP, you know.
People
I don't even use my
people
computer.
don't even think that far ahead. They're like, oh, okay, well, I'll just do this. Well, guess what? The internet's not going to be working. The phone line's not going to be working. So hopefully you'll have a close-knit group of people, you know, that you can say, hey, let's meet up here. We'll be able to take care of each other. We'll bring supplies, and we'll figure it out from there.
Food,
you know, the
water.
number one thing is having a plan.
Right. Well, I think that's really true. And is there a place online where you can get the plan?
Yeah, there's so many places online that you can get the plan. I mean, you can just Google, what do I need in case of an emergency?
But there are so many emergencies that could happen, and it all is very dependent on where you are geographically in the country as well. So how do you know, just say you have one closet, you want that to be your preparation closet. How do you know what to stock it with?
Okay. It is very easy to get overwhelmed. So I just say, start out with 3 days. Get 3 days food and water. Make sure that, you know, you have an emergency kit, and then go on from there. You know, it's very easy to get prepared on $10 a week. $10 a week. You spend $5 at Starbucks. $10 a week, you can buy 10 pounds of beans. You can buy 10 pounds of rice. You can get 10 gallons of water. You can get 10 cans of food. And after a month, just $10 a week, which you would spend on, you know, snacks or going to Starbucks or something like that, you already have over a week's supply of food. That's pretty good.
That sounds pretty
and
important.
It's very
and a good way
feasible.
To think of it. And
very
incremental
feasible.
like that, so
Yes.
that it is feasible. What is the psychology in a situation like this? I noticed right away there was such a sense of generosity that I had not really seen ever before in my life. I was working relief effort after the tornadoes in Alabama, and my job was to give receipts to people for their taxes, because they were walking up donating hundreds and hundreds of dollars worth of groceries and emergency supplies that they had gone to hardware stores that were not in the disaster area and bringing them to us in the disaster area, and no one would take a receipt. No one would take a receipt. It was unbelievable. The cars would pull up. We'd have long lines of cars. They'd pull up. I'd take their things, and I'd give them a receipt, and no one would take that receipt. There was a true psychological shift in just wanting to help in that moment. But there are other psychological shifts. We all know about looters and things like that. What happens in the midst of a disaster that we should be psychologically prepared for?
Basically, the first thing you need to do, a lot of people, first of all, one of the reasons people don't prep is because they're too scared to think about it.
Yeah.
Okay? But living through the wildfires, seeing what happens in Katrina and Sandy, we do know bad things can and will happen. So I think the first thing to do, and that's why so many people get overwhelmed, that they don't even start, is to just start small and to just, and it's just kind of like an insurance. When you start prepping, I tell people, just try to do a little bit at a time, because they'll start thinking, but what if this happens, and what if this happens? There's nothing you can do.
So once the disaster happens, then remaining calm, knowing that you've prepared in the ways that you have.
And the number one thing that's going to help you remain calm is knowing that you have something to fall back on. You know, it's just like if you get in a car accident, you need insurance, right? It's just another form of being responsible, taking care of your family, knowing that, okay, well, if something happens, at least we have at least 3 days food and water. I would say a month, just to be okay. I was a member of the CERT team, the Community Emergency Response Team, in the Witch Creek fires, and it took 18 days for the Red Cross to get there.
Yeah, I remember that from the Alabama tornadoes as well. We were shocked how long it took for relief efforts to really get there. Now, they would bring in bottles of water. The helicopters could deliver them to the areas that were completely just gone, where people were still wanting to be out in that rubble searching for their grandmother who was missing, or their dog that was missing, or their wedding ring that was missing. And so you couldn't really stop that. And basically all authorities could do was try to keep other people from getting in. But as far as any real help for those people in all those layers and layers of rubble, there wasn't any for days on end. And so they had to be there alone. And sometimes the only touch they had with the outside world was a radio, because the cell phones, as you said, after a certain period of time, they were gone. Wasn't a factor. That radio was the way they held on. And I had so many people, my business being radio, say afterwards, could have never gotten through it without that voice on the radio being there through the night, continuing to talk to me and continuing to calm me down, and then neighbors being there for each other, I think, is another huge part of what happens after a disaster.
That's exactly right. Having a radio, and just knowing somebody's on the other end telling you what's happening, that's information. That's a good way. You talk about psychological, because when something happens like the blackout and nobody knew what was going on, just having that radio on and hearing what was going on, knowing what to expect. Another great thing about having a ham radio is that if I'm out here in Escondido, something's happening in East County, you know what's coming your way.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
And a lot of people did know, because the weather reports, the TV might be off. You might not be able to watch that tornado roll in or whatever.
Yeah.
All right, awesome. Well, Richel, I do appreciate it. Your site is Survival Preparedness.
It's on meetup.com. It's called Survival Preparedness, and it's free to join. We have lots and lots of meetups to help people.
All right, we're out of time.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. We'll be back with your calls, 888-650-8176. Smart Life returns right after this. Thank you.